All right, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing another Walking Dead video for today. In this one, we'll do a Q&A. We'll give our thoughts on who we think will get that comic book death. Alright, so I wanted to go ahead and do another Walking Dead video after that huge issue 192 for the Walking Dead comic book series, which I'm still kind of, coming to grips with even now. Spoiler warning if you guys are not cut up for the comic book series and you don't want to know, because it's the biggest death they've ever done. It's the biggest death they could do, right, in the Walking Dead series. And like I said, spoilers, that is for Rick. So we haven't done too many videos on this one after kind of the review or reaction, after reading the issue 192, been doing Fear and some other stuff. But man, this one is a huge one. If you guys didn't read the issue, definitely got to check it out. And 191 and 192, two of the biggest issues ever. So in terms of the TV series, we're at about issue under 150. So we're somewhere around, like, I want to say, depending on how you read it, because certain events have been adapted already, such as the Maggie going after Neagan and stuff like that has been adapted in the TV series in season 9, and that doesn't happen until later on in the comics, like way later on. So there's certain things they've kind of brought in early, so it's kind of hard to tell like exactly where the issue count is and what season this kind of death would be interpreted in or adapted to the TV series version. Each season takes up roughly maybe 18, somewhere between probably 15 to 20 issues of the Walking Dead comic book series. So if we're almost 50 issues behind or something like that, it's, around 2 or 3 seasons, 2 or 3 years. So all of season 10, 11, and then depending on how much stuff they kind of add in, eventually this would be kind of adapted, I would think, in season like 12 or 13. Again, depending on the pacing, depending on how much extra stuff they put in there. That's what we would be looking at. But, the TV series is an entirely different animal now, too, right? It's still kind of following the comics, but it's so different from the comics now. You have the offshoot of the Rick movies going. You have Michonne leaving, too. You have Maggie, who might be coming back this year, but it's not confirmed. And so you have all this other stuff happening. So by the time we get to issue 192's release in the TV series version, it's going to be a few years from now at least, I want to say. And at that point, by the time they get to season 12 or 13, if people say if they even do, Trev, well, they pretty much are going to. It's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to do that, at least, right? At least to that season. And then when it gets past 12, 13, 14, then we can start to kind of think about, like, okay, is it going to continue? We'll have to see if Fear and the third series are on at that point, and if the movies are still going, or if they've all been released at that point. And we'll have to see how things kind of go. But of course, Rick will not be returning to the original Walking Dead television series, so it won't be Rick's death unless they adapt it in the movies or they do something like that. I don't think it works for the movies. This kind of death with Rick, where you have the Commonwealth and you have him being killed, which causes all these other things to kind of happen and Carl to change and all this stuff. The situation with the television series is so completely different that you can't really do the death the same way for Rick. It can't really be Rick, I think. So if it does get adapted in the Walking Dead television series, I could see it maybe being somebody like Aaron or Daryl, I think is one. I think comicbook.com, right after it released, had done a kind of prediction type thing that they thought that maybe that would be Daryl's death in season 12 or 13 or something like that we could see change, which, I could kind of see that, but, someone sneaking up on Daryl, I think is kind of, that doesn't quite sound right to me. Daryl sleeping without, some kind of tripwire or something, you know what I mean? In like a nice building and stuff like this, like that doesn't feel right for Daryl. So maybe for Aaron, that sounds like it makes the most sense. It really feels like they're setting him up to be sort of the television series, original series version of Rick going forward for Alexandria, right? He's got the one hand missing. He looks exactly like the comic Rick. He's got the beard and everything and the hair. Very similar, right? Maybe even more so than... you could say he actually resembles the comic Rick as look, probably closer than even Andrew Lincoln does, because the hand and like I said, the hair is just such a close match. Because in the comic series, Rick's hair is sort of like... just the way it's kind of drawn, it's supposed to be like light brown or like orangey type thing. Sometimes depends on the cover or whatever, but something like that, right? Figures. If you look at the figures, you can tell it's brown, but it's like got a little bit of orange in it. that kind of thing. So, but, again, it's so far out, and it's just like, who knows what the hell the television series will even be like at that point? Who knows how much stuff they're going to put in the movies? Who knows how they're going to, change the television series as a result? Because you don't have Rick, you don't have Michonne, you don't have some of these other characters, you don't have Carl. So you can't really do the death in the same way in the television series, and I don't think it should go in the movies. Also, there's the question of the Commonwealth kind of being in, the movies, and then if that is the group that took Rick or part of it or something like that. The original TV series has Maggie kind of going to the Commonwealth as well, and then Fear the Walking Dead's been hinting at the Commonwealth sort of being, at least with the rings that are on Rick, looking like they might be villains. So, unless the helicopter group is not the Commonwealth and it's some other kind of group entirely and not just a section of the of the different communities that make up the Commonwealth. So we'll see how the whole thing goes down. You guys can leave your comments below on what you think. If you got to read through that death for issue 192 for Rick in the Walking Dead comic series, how do you think that will play out in the TV series, and how do you think Rick will be killed off in the movies eventually? That is, if he is killed off in the final movie, which, I don't know, man. Will they end off the Walking Dead movie trilogy with a third movie with Rick's death? And how will they do that? That's kind of tricky, right? It's sort of like maybe you kind of expect them to do that. Could they do a happy ending for Rick? I mean, that'd be cool if they could somehow do that. But I would not at all be surprised if that's not how it goes down, and they do something else for him. Either way, the television series version of Rick's death is probably going to be better than the comics, right? I mean, I think that's kind of easy to say. His death in the comics it's not that good considering it's Rick. Like, considering that it's him and all the issues leading up to 192 issues, and that's how he goes out. It's pretty lackluster, if anything, right? I mean, that's what I saw from most people. Were like, oh man, that's such a weak death for Rick. But again, it's being used as part of the Commonwealth storyline. There's going to be stuff that happens from it for Carl and for some of the others. It's just kind of unfortunate that he couldn't have had maybe a more epic death at the hands of someone kind of more fearsome than Sebastian. I mean, it's just like in bed when he's sleeping. It's just kind of lackluster, right? Roro Fight the Power 9 says, heavy man, really heavy issue. So hard to see Rick zombified in that one panel. And yeah, that's true, man. It really was, right? It was really, it was really sad to read it through. And I'm still kind of, coming to terms with it now. It's taken a little while for me after reading it to kind of really think it through. And it's kind of unfortunate it had to go down that way. I would have thought that maybe for issue 200 you could see something like that, issue 200, but then we might have expected that, and he probably didn't want us to kind of expect or know what was going to happen when it did. AllWordzAreMadeUp Voidz says, Trev, after all these years, do you consider yourself still as much of a fan or less than before? Just wondering, keep up the great work. Well, I mean, the thing is, The Walking Dead's been going for a long time. The comic book series is at like 16 years or something like that. The television series is going to be at its double-digit season next year, so in the fall, this year anyway, this year in the fall, it's going to be at season 10. So it's going to be 10 years of Walking Dead. I'd say I'm just as much of a fan as ever, especially after in the TV series version, when we saw Rick's final episode with What Comes After. Is that what it's called? Yeah, I think so. Episode 5 of season 9. I have to look it up to verify. I'm just going off memory here, so sometimes I misremember things. Yeah, man. Ever since that episode, that was such an amazing episode for the series, and it was done so brilliantly. I mean, to see the comic book version of that, I mean, he survived that, but it was sort of like a TV series death because then he leaves, and then you're going to have to watch the other one. So sort of like they killed him off without actually killing him. So it was pretty brilliant. It was smarter than even I could have thought of, in predictions ahead of time. It was really, really smart with the helicopter and everything. Also because it goes back to the beginning of the series when Morales calls him Helicopter Boy and stuff like that, and you see the helicopter. It's like the way they set it up. All of that becomes foreshadowing for him actually. It's so brilliant. It's just so brilliant. It's like a perfect end. I think the Walking Dead television series became better than I ever thought it was going to be. Like when it first started out, I never thought it was going to be this good in the TV series, and it ended up being better than I could have even hoped for, I think. And At least the way I look at it. The comics, I'd say I'm not as into the comics right now as I was during All Out War, as I was during issue 100, as I was during the Whisperer War. The Commonwealth storyline is a different kind of storyline. It's more of like a political thriller type of thing. It actually is a lot like Game of Thrones. Like if you watch or you read A Song of Ice and Fire, you watch a Game of Thrones first few seasons, it feels somewhat like that actually. Especially Sebastian reminding me of Joffrey. I mean, I think everybody says that. They're like, oh, he's like Joffrey. Yeah. That's true. If you've seen Game of Thrones, you will get what I'm saying. So I think I'm just as much of a fan as I ever have been. Bigger fan of the TV series because I think it ended up being better than any of us could have really hoped for. I think after season 9, seeing season 9 go through is like, it's better than I really thought it would be. And really happy with it. The comics, though, I did enjoy the wars a lot. The Commonwealth stuff has been good, but it's not the peak time for me as a reader for the comic book series. So I'll tell you that. So that's straight up, what I think about it right now. On a totally 100% honest opinion. But it's not the most popular time for Walking Dead. That was around season 5 or 6 when most people were watching it. So everything gets older as time goes on, and it's going to be difficult for them to keep people watching, but I think that they're doing more than as best as they can to try to do that. And, like if you think of other series with Rick leaving, most other series probably would have killed him, right? It would have just killed him right there. But they decided, well, let's try this movie thing. Let's do this and let's see how it goes. And man, I think that is just so brilliant that they did that for us fans. I mean, it's better. Again, it's better than we probably could have hoped for because most series would have just killed him, and that's it. Kyle Jennings says, "I hope Carl finds Neagan and they turn a little on the bad side to get some revenge. Carl beating in Sebastian's head with Lucille 2.0. Make it happen." So Carl's influences and whether or not he'll end up more like Neagan or more like Rick. It's crazy to think that Neagan has actually outlive Rick. I mean, that's just unbelievable to think about. And kind of in the TV series, that's kind of happening as well, too. It's just unreal, right? And Carl, too, in the TV series. But in the comics, man, I think Carl is really the future for the Walking Dead comic series. They have a special character there. I don't think he should die until pretty much the end of the series or issue 300 or something like that. Like, it should be a long time. Carl is the best character I think the comics has now that Rick is gone. And, Neagan probably maybe second, and the way that he could affect Carl and how Carl could kind of become a villain. Right now, he's pretty together, but I would like to see Carl go a little bit more down that kind of darker path and become more like Neagan, do some questionable things, and man, that would be entertaining, right? So, absolutely. Yeah, dwighty83 says, the thumbnail I used for the reaction to 192 of me just being like, describes me perfectly, just frustrated, or I was like this, I think, right? Dejected, right? Disappointed and sad. It felt so lackluster. Dwight died for no god dang reason. So, yeah, Dwight, his name is Dwighty Boy, so he's probably not feeling the comic book series version right now that much either, right, for it. I mean, that was another one, too, that came out of kind of nowhere. So, who knows in the TV series when they have to adapt these, how they're going to do that, because they're losing people to the movies. They're giving a couple people like Dwight to fear, and Morgan, and they're spreading things out. And the original series just feels very thin. When you look at all these character deaths and stuff, you're thinking, like, at least I'm thinking, who are they going to use for this? Because they don't have that many characters to really kill off. There's hardly anybody there to use for this kind of stuff. So, yeah. Mike Riley says, still better than flying Rick away in a ridiculous effing helicopter. So not everybody likes the Rick surviving thing, helicopter. Some people might have just wanted to see him be killed off. And that's, that's fine, if you didn't like it. I just think it's good because it gives us the ability to look forward to the movies, which could be maybe the best thing The Walking Dead's ever done, depending on how good they are. So we'll see, and I'm heavily looking forward to them, and I'm happy they didn't do that, because if they did that, I think a lot of people would have just rage quit. I don't think people really want to see that. It's not really what they want to see. Eventually, you might have to do it, because eventually, Andrew Lincoln's going to finish his time as Rick 100%. And, as such, maybe you do have to kill him off at some point. But hopefully it's in like the last movie at the end of the movie or something. Hopefully it's not in the first or second movie. Otherwise, who cares about the other two after? Jay Marston says, I'm excited to see Carl as the protagonist. This is something I can't say about the show. So, yeah, that's true, man. A lot of people, I saw there was one comment that got like 90 thumbs up in issue 192 and the comment section of the video. And they basically said, like, this is how bad of it. This is the worst mistake ever to kill Carl off in the TV series, because because they did that, they don't have this great character there. But also, the advantage of the comic version is now they have a special character that doesn't, like Daryl, that doesn't exist in the other version. So now they have a special character with the comic book series version of Carl, and they can do some really cool things with him. And the TV series does not really have an equivalent. They kind of played with Henry for a while and that kind of thing. It's like, then they killed him off too. It was kind of like a double twist there. Because you would think he would have survived. So they don't really have an equivalent. Sure, they'll probably build one or do something, but in the TV series version. But, it's like, it's just like, yeah, it's crazy, right? So it's good for the comics. Not good for the show, I don't think, because they could use them there. Tom BRDR1 says Trev reached the level of Trev reached acceptance, the acceptance level of grief, right? So still sad though. It hurts my heart watching you go through this. So it's true. I was totally in denial when I read issue 191, and I admit it. I thought that there would be a dumpster, or there would be something, or there'd be a way he would survive. I guess I just kind of assumed that, well, Rick's going to live, right? Like, Rick's going to survive. Even if he gets shot right here, he's going to make it, right? Like, Carl got shot there, and he's still alive. So I guess after all the dumpsters and all the years and all the stuff we've seen, I just always kind of defaulted to think he's going to live, though, right? Like, somehow he's going to make it. He's going to JSS. And that's just not what we saw. So it just isn't. And you're right. I finally accepted it now. And, I'm okay to discuss it with you guys. It doesn't make me so depressed that I don't even want to talk about it, right? Because that's kind of what it was at first. It's like so depressed you just don't even want to think about it. Anyway, that'll be it for today's video, guys. If you want to see another one for the comic series and maybe a tribute to Rick or something, so we probably should do that if you think about it, then leave a comment below. Thumb up the video. Share favorite. I'll have another Walking Dead video for you guys soon. Or, maybe Fear or something. Well, Fear this weekend, as usual. So something like that. Anyway, that'll be it for this one. See you guys soon. As always, it's Trev. Saying peace. Later, guys. See you soon.